145. I'm your host, Greg Gaub. The gang's all here with Tony and Luff and Jeremy and Don and Una and John and Mike and John and Garth and John and all the other non-Johns. Let us talk slot cars. Anybody got any show and tell they want to show and tell? Raise your virtual hand, wave your real hand, and I'll try to call on you. If not, then we'll just move straight on to Club Corner. Let me check my photos, see if I got any fun photos to share.
Well, I have kind of a show and tell.
Show it in. Show and tell.
Okay, so I have a 3D scanner here. Now, I got this to review for a tech thing I work on. And let me just say that if you're interested in 3D printing, this is not ready for prime time. If you think 3D printing is hard, this is the worst. So you can scan stuff, but it does not stitch together very well. So as of right now, I don't recommend anybody buying a 3D scanner. So that's all. It's not what you think.
I've seen enough in-depth reviews of enough 3D scanning, consumer level 3D scanners that I haven't even spent any money on it. I hope you didn't have to spend your own money on that.
No.
Okay, good.
I get some products for review sometimes, and then have to let them know what it's like. But if like this is supposed to be like $800. If I had to buy this with my own money, I would be crying right now. It's so ridiculously hard. And I'm like tech oriented, so I can't imagine why they market these to normal people. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
every time the subject comes up on forums, I basically say, you want to point the thing at a thing and then turn around and hit print on your printer. That's not gonna happen. It's just not.
No. People buy those printers like a real paper printer with a built-in scanner, and you think you just put it in, push a button, go, it's done. No. No.
Yeah, no.
So I just want everybody to save your money. When it gets to the prime time, I'll be the first to brag about it. But right now, it's rough.
It's all about the software and
how it stitches it together.
Exactly. There's a dozen different scanner hardware technologies that all get their point cloud. You know, they get a point cloud. That's basically all they're getting is points from the object that then it's in a cloud. That's why it's called a point cloud. It's the software that then takes all those points and does something with it. The better the software, the more expensive the whole thing is. And the actually good software where you can almost point, scan, and print. There's still a couple steps in between where you chop off the bits you don't want, but have something that's printable without so much work. Costs thousands and thousands of dollars for the consumer stuff, and you're still you still are sitting there for hours and hours working on the scan to try to get something usable out of it, and it's still not going to be as good as somebody sitting with a proper CAD modeling software or even sculpture modeling software producing a proper thing with smooth curves and everything, smooth surfaces. It's just not.
It's not ready.
Not there yet. Maybe in 10 years. I don't know. We'll see. Alrighty. Sorry that you're not getting the good scans to turn around and print with.
Well, I'm going to try some stuff outside too. The natural lighting is a little better, so I'm going to try some car parts on car and see what I can do. But
and for anybody out there that wants to do it without any fancy hardware, go look up photogrammetry. It's almost as good as a 3D scanner. Just take a boatload of pictures, run it through software, it gets a point cloud that way, and you basically have what a scanner will give you. A point cloud that you then have to work on to turn into a solid model that can then be printed. No, thank you. I did that. I played with that. Didn't get very far. And like you, I'm a techie guy, so. Alrighty, Mike had his hand up for a while. Go ahead, Mike.
I've got to tell more than anything else, in my ongoing saga. So all you analog guys can roll your eyes now. I was working on PC Lap Counter, which I got to work reasonably well with myself. So Monday it was the trial. and it wouldn't work no matter what I did. Changed everything. Shiggy went through it. You know, he runs the computer for the analog racing in there, and he looked at it and he couldn't figure out hide nor hair of what was going on. And after they left, of course, we went ahead and did an oxygen race. And after they left, I figured it out. You have to enter the lane that they start rather than having it be done automatically. When you set your races up, you have to enter a lane. Well, it's a lane, but it says lane, but it's actually the position. So you have to actually physically put the number in of each person in order to make it work. And I tried it afterwards. I started a practice session with holding my hand on 2 controllers and running 3 cars around. So I got it to work that way. But I still have a couple issues that I have to figure out. One is how to turn off the track call for practice. And the other is setting up the pace cars. I want to figure that out before next week if I can. So we'll see what happens with that. It's a deep dive, and it is definitely not user friendly. One of the things that we tried in there was like, enable. It says in the driver section, it says enable track call. So, and the boxes were always checked. So I dechecked the boxes. Well, what that means is that you can't turn off the track call. Not that it doesn't go on.
It didn't disable the auto track call. It disabled the driver's ability to enable or call or turn off the track.
Correct. Yeah. So it was like, oh, crap. Anyway, that was my travails with that. So the bad thing is that when we resorted to RCS 64, and we've got timeouts every 3/4 to a full lap. It was crazy. We had 10 timeout things where it would fault and lose the control of it in 7 laps. It was nuts. And the week before, we had 3 cars, and it was fine. Nothing. So it's like, I have no clue what is going on with that thing. So anyway, that's my travails on the race system.
We'll talk about the actual racing later on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good example of why whenever somebody asks, what race manager I would recommend for whatever system, like all the systems have multiple choices. I don't say, oh, well, this is the best because I like it or it has the features I want or whatever. Or, if all they want are features that all of them have, I don't just say, well, this one is, for whatever reason, right? I always say, try them all. Try all of them. Because some of them click for some people and not others, and others not click for, what I'm saying? So like, PC Lap Counter is super, super powerful, but it's also super, super complicated. And the way that the setups work, like I'm just sitting there going, what am I clicking? What do I need to click? What is it doing? It's not obvious, even with reading the manual. And it works with every system except the one. It works with pretty much every digital and analog system.
Yeah.
And you've got SSDC, RCS64. There were a couple others for Scholastic Digital that just kind of.
Smart Race is coming out.
Smart Race is coming out for the Arc Pro, yeah. And there's just so many choices, right?
Yeah.
I never say pick this one. I say try them all because. What works for me might work for them, might not work for them, and vice versa.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's people out there rolling their eyes at us complaining about PC Lap Counter going, what? It's obvious. Just click here, click there. What?
Well, I haven't found anything where anybody has done any kind of tutorial about how to set it up at all. I looked, and maybe I don't put in the right words, but.
Well, it's done by the German dude, right? So a lot of
I think he's French, isn't he?
PC Lap Counter Belgium.
Oh, Belgium. Okay.
Kind of in the middle. Germanic.
Yeah, between.
Yeah. So I mean, he's got his own forum that I got to use Translate on in order to read anything.
Oh, yeah.
I've posted
Yeah,
requests.
I tried the form and for some reason it's difficult to translate on my iPad, so I haven't been doing it, but I may look on that and see. But even the ones that were in English were pretty much useless to me. I couldn't find anything that, just if somebody would either print or do a video on just a basic setup so that you could get going with digital, it would be nice. And expand it later, because all the manual does is tell you what it does. It doesn't tell you how to do it.
Yep.
It's not an instruction manual at all. It's a manual delineating the features of each thing. If you can figure out the right buttons to push, good luck. So anyway,
I feel you.
Yeah.
All right, let's give Jim a minute. Go ahead, Jim.
Okie dokie. Back to the world of analog. Sorry. We're preparing for a big race this weekend, the NSR Classic Le Mans race, 2-day race. And so I was ordering parts, and I don't know how this happened, but this just happened to jump in my shopping cart. And so along with a bunch of NSR parts for the race this weekend, this thing showed up. And I gotta say, this thing looks really good. They did a great job on it. I like the scale auto cars for F1 in terms of performance. This is one of the low nose cars. My current race car is a high nose, so I have one of each now. And like I said, they just did a great job on this car in terms of the looks. The helmet details. The helmet detail is amazing. So for the price point and everything you get in the scale auto, they're really good. So that's it. Just happened to jump in my shopping cart. Not sure how that happened, but I've got it now.
Well, you should complain to the retailer about that.
Yeah. It was a glitch. It was a glitch in the software.
Well, good stuff. Good looking car. I'm sure we'll hear about how well it runs on the track once you do all your stuff to it. Alrighty, Dave, you've been on before. Mr. Maddock, you have been on before, yeah. Okay, just making sure. I'm terrible with names and faces, so. All right, anybody else want to do a show and tell? Not seeing any virtual or real hands. Don, you got something? All right, let me spotlight you.
Yep. I picked up a couple of the Polycar F1s. I was kind of surprised how you have to put the wings on them, but the front wing I'm not real thrilled about, but
Oh, interesting.
you
Does
see
it
the
just
little
snap off?
clip
Snap
right
off?
there.
Does it
That's
come
what
off?
holds the front wing on.
Does it
There
come
is
off?
an option to put two magnets in there too.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but it doesn't come with the magnets, so.
Not true.
And
You-
I heard
in my
about that.
experience, Don, you can glue it on without too much of a problem. They aren't very fragile. But if you do, scrape the paint off on both sides before you glue it, because otherwise
Yeah.
it remains proud.
Well, like on this one, there's some flash in the way in there also that would need to be removed.
Yeah.
But you even have to glue the rear wing onto the chassis. It won't stay in by itself. It just sits there.
Yeah. If you use E6000, it's pretty good.
And I got the green one. I like it. It's a Metaflake green. It's quite pretty color.
Nice British racing green looking.
And I was surprised that they don't have magnets in them either.
Yeah, they usually have them.
And they run quite smooth.
Are there pockets for magnets?
No,
I haven't taken one apart to see.
no,
No, there isn't.
none of the Polycar Formula Ones, even the old classics, have magnet pockets.
But they are nice, smooth running cars.
Yeah.
But that's my big purchase for the last week.
Are those the ones that have the extra set of gears?
It has an
Yes.
extra chassis with it.
Yeah, it has
Yeah.
both an analog and a digital
And,
chassis.
Digital chassis, that's correct.
Ah, interesting. I saw. I guess it's been at least a year, maybe longer than that. Atalaya makes a series of decals for those
Yep.
decal sheets, and they had it. I was going to get a green one and put the Alfa Romeo decal sheet on it, but
Mhm.
we got a chance.
That's all.
Sure. Anybody else got any show and tell?
I'm
Alright,
just
Mike.
looking for a photo of cars with Atalaya sheets on. Hold on.
By all
I can
means.
find.
Mike, did you have your hand up for something else, or you're?
Oh,
hoping
if you went to Club Corner, I was going to do that.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I don't know how much longer do you want, Dennis?
We're
not in a rush. Obviously, we're only 15 minutes in and already on Club Corner.
You have an update on Electric Dreams, Dennis?
Yeah, the update on Electric Dreams is that the big opening will be Saturday, February the 8th. 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock or something is the time that Marco's talking about, holding whatever event he wants to hold or whatever party he wants to throw. I haven't got any further details on that yet. The Cunningham track, the 6-laner, that is all up and running, and apparently very nice now that it has a slightly deeper braid recess. And he called me this morning to get the final settings on the power for the Buena Park flat track, because the power and wiring is all being installed today. And so the final settings of that are being done today. So I know that next week I'll be going in there to get that track ready for the weekend. So that's all looking pretty good. I don't have any further knowledge of what's going on as far as the rest of the work in the building is concerned, but there is a lot of other work going on in that building. All right, I've got where I wanted to go. So this, for example, is one of the Polo car black cars with the, what was it, 2022 sticker set that they wanted to, oops, wrong way. Sorry, hold on. That Atalaya produced for that car. For the there we go. That's a nice shot.
Yeah.
So that was the decal set for the 2022 version, and I used one of the Interlagos miniatures Hamilton helmets in there as well. It really makes for a beautiful car by the time you're done. By the time you're done, and the decals themselves are extremely high quality. So I never have any problem recommending the Atalaya decals for anybody. They work really, really well. I have some others, but I'll have to go looking for them.
All right, well, I'll do a quick one. I found some pictures worth sharing, so I'll share them. Recently has come to my attention that not everybody has spare bushings hanging around in their parts bins, especially if they start with Scalextric and Carrera and get their very first slotted car, which does not use double flange bushings as Scalextric and Carrera and other similar cars do. Also, there's no such thing as a double flange 3mm inner bore bearing that fits into a standard 3/32 axle double flange bearing clip. So in order to make these things easier for GNS tire grinder users, I'm now including these 4 packs of 3/32 inner bore and 3mm inner bore double flange bushings printed in PETG so that, you know, doesn't get hot and melt like PLA might, but you should use lubrication anyways. And I also pre-ream these. I actually delivered a bag full of these 3mm ones to Alan to put on his shop, pre-reamed to 3mm, for people who might, I don't know, put Revo parts in a Scalextric or a Carrera or whatever. People do things. So that's been provided, along with a pack of screws and nuts, extra bands, whole sanding spindles with 240 and 600 grit sleeves, 1/8 inch split pulleys, and rubber bands, and basically stuff for the GNS tire grinder, some of which can also be used with other tire truing machines, such as the 1/8 inch split pulleys. But yeah, that's pretty much it. All right. Any other show and tell before we move on to Club Corner? All right. When Dennis finds whatever else he wants to share, we'll just drop that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I stopped looking, so.
Okay. No, you don't have to keep
Carry
looking.
on.
Do what you want.
All
There's
right. Yeah, carry on.
no requirements here. All right, Mike, go ahead. Talk about your racing.
Okay, let me share. Uh-oh.
I didn't do it.
Uh-oh. Come on. Oh, it's a pain in the butt since they changed it.
And you want to run digital cars.
I never had said that I had any technical expertise.
That's my
Actually,
point.
I have bad fingers is what the problem is, and it won't, for some reason, will not raise the, there it goes. Come on. All right.
Is there a mouse you can get for that device?
No. Okay. So there we have, we did after the debacle, as I explained earlier, we did a Thunderslot race, and we had 2 brand new cars. And as you can see with that, we had a little problem with short laps on the 2 new cars. Both Ratby and I had the new cars, and we had some short laps, but we were so far ahead of Shiggy and Joel that it didn't make any difference. I haven't gone back and checked the video yet to see exactly how many extra laps we had, but I know that we did have a couple there. And the only way I can alleviate it apparently is gradually raising the hall sensor until it gets to be optimum height, not too high so it doesn't record the laps, and not too low so it double records or records short laps. So anyway, I hadn't got enough time. I ran out of time this week when I was setting these up. And normally what I do is I run 50 to 75 laps with each one to make sure that it doesn't miss any laps or anything like that. It's not always perfect, but most of the time I can get it set there. But that's the problem with not having a chip for each car, because you can't leave it at the optimum height. You have to play with it every time. So I end up spending 4 or 5 hours every week doing that. Anyway, it was a pretty good race, actually, despite the way it looks. This is the way it's finished. I won in the Lola. I actually think there's something that Gio said that about the SCP2 having better fuel mileage is credible, because I've been consistently getting better fuel mileage than the other guys, and that helps me a lot, especially since the the software that I've got, the way we've got the software set up in RCSO2, you have a power drop every time you fall off the track. So it really hurts you big time, because you can't pass anybody if you're down a damage point or two. And we set it up so we each have 4 damage points. By the time you get 3 damage points on you, it's probably back to less than a fuel load as far as the speed goes. So you've got to correct it as soon as you can if you blow it. So it puts emphasis even more on staying on the track. But I have to say, these 2 Thunder Slots were straight out of the box, and man, they were fast. They were so fast. It was and such sweet cars without any adjustments other than loosening some screws. It was, and the other 2, the ones behind, actually the McLaren M6A that you see that finished 4th, came within 1/10 of setting the lap record when I was testing it. So it's not just the new cars, it's the old cars too. It's pretty amazing. I love them. And they're just so easy to drive, relatively speaking. You know, I can't say enough good about them. As non-mag on my track, I really think it's got to be chassis flex. Anyway, it was a great race. We were close, and the seesawed back and forth because Ratby decided to use an alternative fuel strategy. He goes in at half full and goes, and then he's off sequence with the rest of us. So there's no danger of having all of us in the pits at the same time, which doesn't usually happen, but occasionally can happen. So, but it worked out fun. It was great fun. It was a good race. And outside of the short laps that we had, which I'm going to work to correct on those particular cars, the other 2, the 3rd and 4th place cars did not have any problems at all with short laps or missed laps at all. So that worked out pretty well. But yeah, it was great fun. We had a good time. Okay. All right. That's all I got.
Something I thought of when you were talking about the Hall sensors. Come on, there we go. Jeez. First my home phone rings with junk, and then my cell phone rings with junk. Anyways, what I was about to say, while you were talking about the Hall sensor situation, what about like using thin pieces of, cardboard or styrene or whatever, is thin enough to make a not too much of a difference, but thick enough to make a difference, right? And basically just stack those in and move them into the chassis so that when you put the chip back in, you're basically just sticking the Hall sensor on top of that.
Yeah, I could do that, but it's fussy enough. And of course, there's on the Hall sensor, there's that little kind of knobby thing that fits down a little bit. So that's the sensor on the C chips where it has the ribbon type.
Yeah.
And it seems to be variable. You know what I mean? It's not consistent. I wish I could find, if I could set the car on the track and measure the chassis height that's optimum, which I guess I haven't done yet. I'll try that and see what I can do. But what I do is I gradually add thicknesses of double-faced tape until I reach what works out to be the optimal place. So far, most of them, if I use a piece of foam tape like this stuff,
yep.
The Scotch foam tape, and for those that use that, don't put the chip itself directly on that tape. It's almost impossible to get off that cellophane thing without tearing it. And if you tear that or it comes off, the warranty expires. So, just a word to the wise, I use double-faced carpet tape, And that, if you're careful, you can get it off and on. So for those that are swapping chips out to do that, you know, this is easy if you're doing just one car, like the guys that set it up for disco or something like that. It's no problem. You just set it in there and you're done. But when you're setting up 4 different cars every week, it's a real pain in the ass. So, and
they need to be able to swap a chip out. You know, if it's not easy for them to swap out a chip, that's a bad thing, because if a chip dies in the middle of an endurance race, they need to be able to swap it out. So looking at what the things they do with their chip, but most of them are designed, you know, if the chassis isn't already designed for a chip, then they just do a new chassis designed for a chip, like the Glickenhaus one a while back. So yeah,
and you know, for some cars, any of them that have a slotted pot, it's simple because you have the square edges in there. It drops right in. I suppose I've tried blue tack on it, but it doesn't seem to hold them in place. And sometimes halfway through the race, it'll move around, and then you don't get lane changes.
Yeah.
And
use a lot of blue tack.
Yeah. So that's why I've been using the double face tape, but they're, you know, just, it's experimentation, just how it is. But we'll see. The trick is to get it low enough that it measures it and high enough that it doesn't get short laps. And I've succeeded in some cases. Most of the time, if I use, my go-to now has been a layer of double face carpet tape, which is pretty thin, and is sort of corrugated. It's got nylon strands through it to strengthen it. And then one layer of the foam tape, and then another layer of the carpet tape over the top, and then I can stick it down. Most of the time that works pretty well, but not always. So I start low and get it high. The other part of the problem is, of course, there's 2 different styles of Hall sensors. On the B chips, you've got this piece right here that's attached with wires.
Yeah.
Whereas on the C chip, it's on a ribbon piece. I don't have one of those available right. Well, wait a minute. There you go.
For those that don't know.
No, I don't have it. Right. Right. Close. But
most of these guys don't care anyways, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
The ones who care know what you're talking about. Yeah, keep experimenting. I'm sure you'll come up with something.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping to figure it out by next week, so we can use some PC lap counter and see if that cures the problem with the power base timing out. And you know, it says time out, so there's something that
I think it's basically timing out from waiting for communication, right? So the communication happens really fast. So if there is not communication both directions for a certain amount of time, then it times out. But that amount of time to us is seconds, right? Not even multiple seconds, like less than a second. It'll say, "Oh, not working, timeout." So yeah, it means a lot less than we want it to mean.
Yeah. Oh well, I'll keep trying.
Oh yeah, the other thing that popped in my head was sometimes we use a piece of shrink tube.
Yeah.
That's just big enough, if you squish it flat, just big enough to put the Hall sensor into.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, that sticks into the chassis, and then the Hall sensor just slips in and out of that.
Yeah, it has to be tight enough that it doesn't move around too much, though.
Yeah. As long as it can't flip over, it's usually, if it's like this or that, it doesn't really matter. If it's like that, then that's bad. But yeah.
Have you done any more experimentation with PC lap counter at all?
Not since the last time.
Okay. I might be putting together a trip over to your place sometime. I'll let you know if there's some dates that are available, so that Shiggy and Ratby can come along, and we can race over your track at once and see what happens.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, I didn't think you'd be objection to that.
Nope. All right, cool. Looking forward to that. Let me do a quick one. I have racing.
Yeah, because could I just mention?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen these at all. that Mike might be interested in that. That's for holding a chip.
Nope, hold it up
So,
a little bit.
There you go.
Oh,
For holding an oxygen chip?
A C chip.
I haven't seen
Oh,
that one
okay.
yet.
Well, it's something that Gary Skip produced.
Oh, neat.
I've seen. I know Henry designed one, but that's not Henry's design, so I don't know
No.
where that
And the
came
chip slips into that piece?
That's right, yeah. And it's got like I mean, I'm going to say, it's got like a little piece that comes off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
And
Where
then
I
snaps
was trying
in.
to find whether, yeah, there you go. So that
Oh, yeah.
piece clips over.
So that big piece, you glue that into your chassis, and then
Correct.
the little piece just clips on top to hold the chip
Yeah.
in. So you can
Ah.
take it out. Yeah,
So then you can just
Interesting.
pull the chip out when you want to.
yeah. Kind of like what Slotted does with their own chassis, except it's built into the chassis.
Yeah, that's just like a link that goes across into, which is okay. The only downside to that is that I always like to have the chip in a forward position, so the wires to the guide goes to the guide forward,
Yeah.
as opposed to being on the side.
Yeah.
Okay, I just thought I'd show you that.
All right.
Oh,
Thank
thanks.
you for showing that. Hopefully he.
Well, I'm
shares
sure
that
you
part.
could. I'm sure you could come up with something, Greg. You've done quite a bit of 3D printing stuff.
I'm sure I can, but if somebody else has already done it, I don't want to reinvent the
Yeah.
wheel. I'll
No, maybe not. No.
I'll send Gary a message, see if he's shared that somewhere already, or if he's willing to share it. Like I mentioned earlier, I've done my own modifications to the 3D printed chassis for the Glickenhaus hypercar. That I'm blanking on his name, but the guy from Down Under who did those models, and I included a slot-it style clip. So basically, because I could modify the whole chassis, I just put in the stuff in the chassis and then designed a clip to go on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Henry has done something like that, but not that one. And for some reason, his didn't want to fit my chips or something, so I just kind of gave up on that. But yeah, I'll PM Gary and see if he's got that to share.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
So
Thanks.
on Monday we
No
did.
problem.
On Monday we raced analog at one of the guys' Scalextric Sport tracks, and we had almost all of the members show up to race. I think only one person that I could think of who had been coming regularly didn't come. So that means we had 14 people wanting to race. And we do full rotation. And for the series race, we like to get 3 full rotations. 2-minute total for the heats, plus a few seconds pause between minutes, and then usually a minute or 2 between heats. We like to run King of the Hill, which is, in this case, 14 heats. Then IROC, so that's 14 more heats. And then 3 rotations of series, so 70-something heats. So we had a discussion to decide, in order to be done before midnight, what would we not do? So we decided not to do King of the Hill because it was just single person and not nearly as fun as racing against people on the same track at the same time. But that means we still had 56 2-minute heats to cram in, and we still didn't finish until after 10 o'clock, even though we started 15 minutes earlier than our normal 7 o'clock start time. Anyways, that's just backstory. The IROC we ran was BRM Mini Coopers, classic Mini Coopers. They fit nicely on the Scalextric Sport track. Ran those around for a bit, and they are a hoot and a holler, no matter what kind of track you're racing on. And this is the final standings. I managed a 4th place. I forget why. I probably crashed one more time than these other guys. But, fun race. And then we raced our series, which currently is, why am I blanking on that? We just raced it. What did I talk about last week? uh, Revo Slot GT1s. Sorry. So I'm racing my Ferrari F40 along with pretty much everybody else racing the Toyota, LMP looking things. One other guy was racing a McLaren, and I think pretty much everybody else was racing a Toyota. But staying on the track is the name of the game, and I managed a third place position on that final after 42 heats of racing 13 other dudes. I call that success. But, as I say every time, any racing's good racing, so we had a good time. And I got home later than I like to, but not as late as I expected. So also a plus. I am not a night owl. All right, anybody else got any racing they want to talk about? Go ahead, Dwan.
Sorry about that. I was trying to get prepared for it. Anyway, let's see. I'm getting my screen share together here.
You got to show us that shirt.
What is it? Giant eyeballs? Is it a grimace?
It's just some three-dimensional type shirts that I've been getting. No big deal. Wow, what is this thing doing here? I think it's got it. Oh, I forgot to put the music. Oh, well, I forgot to put the sound on. Oh well, that's not a big deal. So, can you see the video?
Yep.
Yes.
So we were at once again at Jim Wiseman's Claremont Raceway, and we had a different kind of races come around for our group in general. He had us do qualifying round, so it was pretty nice. We used the F. We had two classes that we were racing: the F1 NSR F1s and the sideways GT3s, and we had 1 minute of qualifying round for the F1s after getting all our practice in and everything, and that set up the pole position, not the pole position, but anyway, set up the positions for everyone to be grouped into groups of threes, and we raced with that group of three for both sets of races, and we raced all the way through our three heats at one time, so it made it a little convenient. Usually our races just are randomly, well, I won't call randomly, but as far as we're concerned, it's random because we had 21 races this time around. I think we had 20. I think we had one person dropped out. I think initially we were going to have 21 races. So it would have been 7 groups of threes. And so we would normally just get randomized in and out throughout the 21 heats that it was necessary to run each of the 2 sets of races. But by doing it this way, we had the 3 racers that were grouped together based on the qualifying round running against each other. And he gave out heat prizes. So a heat sticker for winning a heat. So it made it kind of, it was just a quick change up and it was nice. It was following a lot of the Electric Dreams type of format. And so in the qualifying round, I ended up in 13th position, I think, something like that. I was in the 3rd heat up. Well, I had the slowest group goes first, and the second slowest group goes next, and then the 3rd slowest group. And I was in third. I was the top of the 3rd slowest group. How about that? And so we did the F1s at the first race, and then we took a little. Well, we actually didn't take any breaks at all. We had pizza and everything that was brought in, but then we had the second race immediately after that. And so I do have the race results. So I can bring that up. I did this awkward, so I'm not going to go ahead and stop my share and come back in with a different share. So, oops. Move that up too. Then So anyway, this was our race results. And I finished in the F1 class fourth, I think it's the 14th position. Wow, so how did I? Yeah, that's 14th position. So I qualified 14th and I finished 14th. So wasn't too bad. But nonetheless, I didn't finish in last. So and I felt good about my racing. Getting a little better. I came up way too many times. And it's all human error. So just getting a little more acclimated and skilled and everything. I think I'll be running up the ranks a little bit and try to get to the middle of the pack. So that was the first race. The second race, we had the races sideways group. Group 5, yeah, group 5. Okay. So in this one, I didn't fare as well, but I finished up 16th. And I did win 2 of my heats, two of the 3. So that was pretty kind of, I felt good about that. I mean, both were by inches, literally 2 to 3 inches in each of those heats. So, but the third heat, I performed so poorly in yellow that I just finished the last of my 3, the last of the 3 races. So, and this weekend we were supposed to have this weekend off for Far Out and then race on the 8th. But because of the new grand opening for Electric Dreams, they moved our race for February the 8th up to this weekend, February the 1st. So unfortunately, I don't know how that's going to affect Jim and the racing up in the northern Cal area, but we're going to have a Far Out race on the same day before we're going to be off. I wasn't going to be ready anyway, but nonetheless, so that's it for my club corner.
All righty, good stuff. Anybody else got racing they want to talk about? Otherwise, floor is open. As long as it's slot car related. Dennis, you find some more pictures you want to share?
No, I didn't find them. I thought I had some, but I didn't. I did a whole bunch of the scale auto cars at one stage, the 86, 89 versions, and the NSR 86, 89s with the Atalaya decals. And I thought I had photographs of those, but I can't find them right now. But yeah, that was all I wanted to show today.
Okay.
It certainly looks like we're going to be in California anyway, going to be blessed or cursed with an absolute avalanche of racing. Yeah, everything, there's so much racing going on. With Electric Dreams coming back online, with all the stuff that goes on in NorCal, with all the stuff that's going on at Piranha. It's getting to be quite difficult to spread yourself that thin. So I suppose that's a good thing.
No.
It's probably going to make certain people concentrate on one genre rather than multiples like I do. But, yep. What do you say?
First world problems.
Wasn't there a big race at Piranha this past weekend?
There was a big retro event at Piranha this weekend. Yeah, I don't have any photographs. There's some stuff on Facebook and a couple of other places. It basically ran over 4 days. Thursday of last week, we started with with the retro stock cars, which is a 4.5-inch wheelbase, 1/24 scale, old stock car bodies, basically from the 1970s. Most guys use a Dodge Charger or something like that as the body. The cars are still inlines. They have to weigh 120 grams. They have big ass front wheels on them, and 50,000 clearance under the whole car, which none of us are really used to. So they don't handle particularly well, but they're actually a lot of fun to drive by the time, once you slow yourself down. The top guys were running very low 4-second laps, as I recall, in qualifying. And we had 20, the first day we had 22 entries, I think, for Stock Cloud. I'm just trying to find the photographs that I have of the results sheet, because I was looking at that just a couple of minutes back.
Dennis, was there anybody from NorCal down for that?
Not the guys that you would normally that you would think of. Don't think there was anybody from NorCal. There were a couple of guys came in from Washington State, and there were guys came in from the East Coast. One or two guys in from one guy in from Massachusetts, somebody from North Carolina, one guy in from Florida. A couple of guys came down from Eastern Washington, and and one guy from Utah. So, and then a couple of guys from mid-California, from Santa Maria, St. Louis Obispo area.
Just wondering if it would be worthwhile to try to start something in Northern California or not.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, who was that now? Somebody else.
I was just wondering if it'd be worthwhile to try to start a series for that in Northern California, or there's not enough people right now.
Yeah, I mean there was a NorCal Retro series that ran for quite a while.
But yeah, I raced it a long time ago.
Yeah, that Jim Fowler ran.
Yeah.
But it kind of died. It didn't seem to be. I think around that time there was some personality clashes.
Yeah, and then he had the vertigo issue. So and
he's had the vertigo issue that's meant that he can't
and
travel.
He's not here anymore. So, I mean, he didn't die. He's just not in this area. But didn't mean
that. I think that was Courtney that was chiming in earlier.
Yeah, Courtney was trying to say something.
Yeah, Dennis, it looked like the car that you built did pretty good in Retro Pro.
In Retro Pro? I didn't run Retro Pro.
Oh, sorry. What was the angle winder? Weren't you building an angle winder?
I built a couple of angle winders that I showed last week, yes, and they were, we ran those on the flat track on on Saturday afternoon. It qualified quite well. It didn't run very well in the main, but it qualified quite well. My biggest problem with it was it just wasn't fast enough. I just had the motor that I bought just wouldn't break in, and it wasn't very fast. And I took it out and put another one in that was older, and it worked better, but didn't have quite the same amount of brakes. And so I didn't do as well as I'd hoped.
I thought I saw at one point you finished second, or did you qualify second?
That was the Thursday night LMP race.
Okay.
On the flat track, and I qualified second and finished second. Although I was quite comprehensively beaten by Duran Trujillo, who managed to beat me by basically 2 laps per heat. I mean, he did 295, I did 279. And I managed to hold off the other guys by the third place guy by about a lap and a little bit, a lap and 1.1 laps.
I just couldn't remember. I saw that you finished second somewhere. I thought maybe that was your angle winder car.
No, it wasn't the angle winder. The Friday racing was for inline coupes on the King track, which I didn't do. The Saturday racing was Formula One on the King track. There we had let's see, 20 22 entries, which was pretty good for Formula One race. And then the Sunday's race was Can-Am, and we had 30 entries for that. The guys were really, really fast on the Sunday. We saw 3.3-second laps from an inline Can-Am car on a King track, which is just insane, you know.
So, and did I read there was some motor issues there?
There were one or two guys who smoked motors. There were a couple of guys who had broken guides, but nothing more than you would normally expect in those kind of races. You know, when you've got 30 guys running and everybody's chasing the last hundredth of seconds, there are some guys who are running tires that are maybe a little too soft, or running gearing that's a little too long, or something happens in the race and you get some damage that puts some load on the motor. But it wasn't anything more than you would, I guess, normally expect with a sealed motor race on a horsepower track like that. You know, I ran all my races on the King track with absolutely no issues whatsoever. But then I tend to run a slightly shorter gear ratio than most guys do. I mean, the guys are running at 12-27 gearing, so it's what, 2.25 to 1. Yeah, whereas I run an 11-26, which is the much, you know, shorter gear ratio of 2.34 to 1. So, but it does allow the motor to rev just a little bit more and keeps it a little bit cooler. But generally, it's a matter of the tires. If you run too soft a tire and you have a lot of rolling resistance, particularly you know, in the turns, the motors can overheat quite badly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the motors historically have been pretty solid, so that's why I was just curious.
Yeah, they weren't really any less solid than normal. I mean, you know, a couple of guys had bad luck. My friend Mil Conroy had a stock car that threw its commutator in the second lap of qualifying. I mean, when we looked inside the motor, there was no commutator left. It's just the Bakelite around the shaft. All 3 segments of copper were completely missing from the motor. So it just exploded the commutator. It's the kind of thing we used to see in the 1960s, you know, when you were over rewinding old Mabuchi comms before we had Kirkwoods and things like that. But not something I've seen too often in a modern motor. But yeah, it took the whole comm out. And then I think there were 1 or 2 other motors that expired during the weekend.
Yeah.
So it goes. Happens.
Racing.
Yeah, that's racing. In general, there were some really good races. The results were close. The racing was tight. The lap totals were high. I think everybody had a good time.
And they were going really fast on that King track.
In qualifying for Can-Am, I ran a 3.59, which is the fastest I've ever turned on that track. And I was over the wall with that. I thought, wow, or over the moon with that. I thought, wow, great timing. Yeah. Of the 30 guys, I qualified like 25th or something. You know, with a 3.5. The top guys were running 3.30. Right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
I was thinking back to the very first running of this event, this Checkpoint Cup, back in 2007, when we were running at Buena Park on their old King track, which was also a girding track, but not as fast as this one. And in those days, we were still running the Falcon 5s and the Slick 7 mini motors or whatever they were called, and we were running 4.6 and 4.7 second laps, and the quick guys were running 4.5s. And the very first TSR D3 motors were introduced at that race. There were 4 of them given to 4 of the team checkpoint drivers. And I remember Paul Sterrett getting up for his lap. In his second lap, he ran a 4.3 that nobody had ever seen before on that track. And we were thinking 4.3, wow. And now we're running 3.3s.
What did you attribute that to? Was the condition time or?
It's everything. It's the motor, it's the track, it's the gearing, it's the chassis, it's the tires, it's the preparation, it's the bodies. All of those things have developed over that time. And
it's rarely just one thing.
Yeah, it's not one thing particularly here. A lot of it is motor and just the sheer torque that the new motors with the neodymium magnets provide. But we've also got to a point where we can run much harder tires because the chassis can handle it and the bodies are providing the downforce. And then, of course, the tracks themselves have changed a little bit. Going from the C7, the G7 or the G5 or whatever it was at Buena Park to the G13 or 20 or whatever it is that we had at Pirano, where the straights are shorter, the turns are wider, and the banking is more pronounced. You get a lot more time. But I mean, even that track, when that track was in Tennessee, before to run under 4 seconds was doing pretty well. They were running 3/8 and thinking they were doing really well, and we're half a second faster than that now.
Has anybody thought about trying to slow the cars down?
Oh, yes. We've thought about it often, and as soon as you try to slow the cars down, nobody wants to drive them. The guys who drive retro cars on the King track are speed crazed morons, the same as any wing car guy ever was. They're just slightly slower, that's all. It's
I think
crazy.
if they slowed it down, they'd have more people.
Yeah, they might.
Just different people.
Yeah, different people.
No, I think they'd have more, because I don't think you'd lose the guys that want to go fast. They still want to race, but I think you'd get more people that just either can't do it or for whatever. Yeah, it's just my opinion.
I mean, once they go brushless, right?
Yeah, that's another bag of worms, a can of worms, all on its own.
I'm sure those guys aren't. I think the speed crazed morons don't want to go brushless because they already have their awesome motors that they build and rebuild. And
a lot of those guys really like to build motors, but I mean, a lot of those guys are buying their motors. They're not building them themselves.
Well, it's like the spec tires now that we're running for this race this weekend, and Electric Dreams did it. To me, it helps the mid pack. The fast guys know the tricks with the tires and or have the time and money and willing to put in the time and money and effort to test 15 compounds of tires.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I do it, and I'm one of those, but I don't think it's good for the sport.
Yeah, I would agree.
You should switch to silicone then, Jim.
No, we're not going to be stupid. We're just going to be crazy.
No more tire magic. Everything is even.
There's always tire magic, Jeremy. Trust me, there's always tire magic.
You say switch to silicone, but now you have to switch to a particular brand of silicone, because what the compounds that Quick Slicks have, and the compounds that Max Tracks have, and the compounds that Super Tires have are all different and all perform differently. So there's no better consistency, in my opinion. There's no better consistency in silicone tires than there is in rubber.
I
The
think
only
it
one.
just evens up the field is what I'm thinking. Like
And you
You
got to
think?
buy 50
When
pairs of silicones to find one that's good. I mean, that's what we
No.
do in HO. You've got to buy a bunch of them because one is just a hair better than another, and they're all identical theoretically. I mean, they're all identical, but there's one pair that's better than another.
But
The other thing too, I think, is that the tricks of preparing silicon tires are just as bad as the tricks of preparing rubber tires.
I keep wanting to say, this is coming from the guy who designed and builds and sells a special thing in order to run in silicone tires so that they perform better. Because what is it? How many hours or whatever on the roller? They just get better or whatever.
well on the track. But my argument was Andreas at the Electric Dreams event versus at the Silicone Tire event. And so once the tires were not a matter of magic, he finished higher. Now that could of course be the competition levels or whatnot, but it just seemed that he was out of his element there, but his skill still showed through, whereas he didn't quite have the advantage of knowing the tire compounds, the magic that happens at Electric Dreams.
Well, but there really wasn't any. It was a spec tire. I mean,
Yeah.
It was a
spec
spec
tire,
tire,
spec,
Electric Dream.
spec tire, spec wheel, no insert. So there's not a
So,
whole lot. You can do.
okay. Oh, I didn't know. I thought you guys just showed up, put a tire on, and then raced, or what?
No,
there was
it was
no-
you bought your
Oh,
spec
okay.
tire beforehand and trued them, but there was no
okay.
inserts. There was a spec
Okay.
wheel and a spec tire. So there's no
Yeah, I know.
all this magic 10 compounds, 5 different densities of inserts, different wheels, different so that part went away.
I know, but you guys just didn't slip them on and race that day.
No,
There,
you
there
don't.
was
No,
still
you don't
behind the
slip 'em on and race
scenes.
'em.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. We can disagree. That's fine.
Yeah, excuse me, I've got something.
Is slot car racing actually a sport?
No, it's an obsession.
There's a can of
Well,
worms for you.
To me, that's a big issue because there's some people that take it as a sport and some people take it as a hobby, and they're both different and they kind of butt heads, and neither is right or wrong.
Yeah. Yep. And some people consider it just not even a hobby or a sport, just a toy or a game. I mean, even a game is higher ranking than a toy. Toy, game, hobby, sport, profession. Nobody's a professional stock car racer anymore.
No, not anymore. We can only wish that it would
be.
become that popular that people would get paid for it.
Yeah, that hasn't happened since John Sucrus and guys like that in the 1960s and early 70s.
Yeah, there's an article about him that was in Car and Driver back in the day about him as a professional slot car racer.
Mm-hmm.
Good article. It's easy to find if you just Google it.
Sound of Teenage Money is the name of the article, the title of the article.
But what was the rumor, Dennis, that he made about $50,000 a year?
$50,000 a year, yeah.
That's in the 60s.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's like, $400,000 or $500,000 a year now.
But it was probably only for a year or maybe 2.
Yeah. There's a lot of professional RC racers.
Yeah. Howie Ursiner was a professional as well, as was Sandy Gross on the East Coast. And Sandy Gross went on to found Polk Audio, and he's still a major player in high-end hi-fi. Made a lot of money. Gave Howie some of that large amount of money as a thank you gift for having helped him start the company. But I don't think Howie ever really, I think it got used up pretty quick, should I say. Yeah.
Fiona, are you going to tell about Suzuka? Or did I miss
No,
that?
I'm waiting for Wayne to talk about that.
Yeah, Wayne messaged
you-
me and said his voice is all hoarse from.
Only have 50 minutes left. There's not enough time for Wayne.
There's not enough
Yeah,
time.
let's say you only can do it in a fifth of the time.
But you and Wayne were on different teams.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So how did you and Tamar and what's his name do?
Ezra.
Ezra.
Yeah. We did quite well in one of the 3 races that we ran. And that was with the car that I had prepared.
And was that with your Porsche or just a car you prepared?
No, that was my Porsche. And yeah, I'll still say we would have won that race had it not been for a ferrule coming out of the guide around the driver swap, I think. And so we finished 8 laps of the lead. And in that time, I had to run down to the car, take the body off, put it back in. And
what kind of guide and ferrule system were you using?
it's a Sloring Plus guide with the NSR ferrule. So
just press
in generally it works good, but must just have overlooked one of them being slightly loose.
Do you just usually press fit them in, or do you use any technique to secure it? No. Okay. Well, time to start designing something to secure them.
Are you gonna put set screws in from the front now on the guide? Because the reason I say that is I drill all my Slotting Plus guides out and put a set screw in the front, a 2mm set screw, to hold the ferrule in place. So there's no doubt about it being solid.
I don't like that system generally because it's quite easy to strip those screws. And then you have nothing.
Well, you still have the ferrule in position. You know, you have the friction of the ferrule, and then all you do is hold the ferrule in a little bit. You don't have to have a lot of pressure on it.
Yeah, but you still have compromised the integrity of the front of the guide, so it's easier for it to bend or break.
True enough.
Unless the guide itself has been properly designed to take that.
Well, so far I've had no problems, but you know, you want to drill it out to the right size so that you get a decent a decent fit to it without expanding it too much to break it. I have had some of the Thunderslot and other companies' guides break doing it that way, but you have to be a little bit judicious. You can't be torquing it down too much. But anyway, I've had it be successful. So, but I don't race like you guys do. So that's
Yona, kudos to you on a car that you built and designed and running at the front of the pack. That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, well, we had 2 cars, and I'd say at the end they were quite equal on pace. I preferred the other car to drive. It was a bit easier to keep in the slot, but come Saturday morning, mine was the only one running, so that was what we ended up using.
Oh dear.
You got right?
Sorry?
Yeah, you're breaking up, Courtney.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee.
You could have just said Tennessee.
You have
say hi to Jack. Say hi to Jack Daniels for us, Courtney.
I just passed him. He asked about you.
So
He
you
was
passed the playing banjos
number
already?
one customer. The which one?
You passed you're out in the middle of nowhere. You passed the banjos about 100 miles ago.
Right. That's exactly right. They're dueling banjos, so it's all good. So I'm safe.
Yeah, let them fight each other, right?
I was going to say something else to Yona, and now I can't remember what that was. It's the middle of Tennessee. It gets you get lost in the fog out here. It's like Iowa with mountains.
Ooh,
Mountains in Tennessee?
mountains in Iowa?
No,
That's
no
like saying
mountains in Iowa and no corn in Tennessee.
All right, well, I guess maybe I'll just stop the live so you guys can relax and
I
actually.
remember calling home one time when I was working in Kansas and saying to my son back home here, well, it's flatter than a pancake out here. And he actually went on Google or somewhere on the internet and found out that actually Kansas is flatter than a pancake. Because if you scale it up, pancakes are more undulating than Kansas is. Size for size. Yeah. Another piece of useless information for you today.
God bless Google.
Yeah.
And the worldwide slide chat. That's all I can say.
Now we know.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end the chat in the stream, but we'll keep chatting about random things. So until next week, everybody, wave bye.
See ya.
Bye. Ending the stream slowly but surely. It says it's over.
You were talking about Kansas. I was running a orientation